In summer 1940, southern England braces under a gathering storm. Luftflotte 2, commanded by Albert Kesselring, hammers the southeast. Luftflotte 3 under Hugo Sperrle strikes the west. Luftflotte 5, led by Hans-Jürgen Stumpff, probes the north. RAF Fighter Command, directed by Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, stands as Britain's shield. No. 11 Group under Air Vice Marshal Keith Park absorbs the fiercest onslaught over Kent and Sussex. The Luftwaffe's aim is stark, achieve daylight air superiority, to break fighter command and open the door to invasion. Hurricanes, comprising roughly 60% of fighter command's single-seat fighters, form the backbone of the defense. Their 8 303-inch Browning machine guns, most effective at close range. Slower than the Spitfire but a steadier gun platform, the Hurricane's rugged airframe soaks up punishment, and its Merlin III, delivering about 1030 horsepower around mid-altitudes, proves reliable. Britain's integrated air defence system, chain-home radar, the observer corps, and sector control rooms guides interceptions with precision, cueing fighters onto incoming raids at long range. From 10 July to 31 October 1940, the Battle of Britain rages. RAF claims reach 739 German aircraft destroyed, with Hurricanes credited for about 55%, over half of those victories. The constraint is unforgiving. Fighter command must keep flying despite losses and exhaustion. Hurricanes often launch multiple sorties per day at the height 4 or more, driving heavy wear on machines and men and demanding frequent maintenance. German fighter briefings stress exploiting the Hurricane's lower top speed compared with the Bf 109, and many Luftwaffe pilots rate it below the Spitfire. Yet its forgiving handling and strong low-speed turn prove lethal against bomber formations. The aura of German inevitability frays as Hurricanes hold the line. By mid-July 1940, the Luftwaffe intensifies its assault over southern England. Waves of bombers escorted by Bf 109 fighters target convoys, ports and airfields. RAF Fighter Command, under Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, relies on an integrated web of technology and human reporting to counter the threat. Radar stations along the coast detect inbound formations at long range, feeding plots into the filter room and sector control system. Once raids cross the coast, the Observer Corps tracks them visually and reports size, height and course to group and sector operations rooms. Sector controllers operating from fortified control rooms direct Hurricanes to intercept bomber formations before they reach critical targets. This system, refined before the war, enables Fighter Command to employ its most numerous fighter, the Hurricane, effectively. Hurricanes equipped with 8 303-inch Browning machine guns typically engage at ranges inside 300 yards to maximize effect against bomber formations. The Hurricane's Merlin III engine, producing about 1030 horsepower around mid-altitudes, ensures steady performance. By the summer of 1940, most frontline Hurricanes carry metal-covered wings, with a minority of earlier fabric wing examples still in service, and the type's rugged structure absorbs damage well. On 15 August 1940, Luftflotte 5 launches a rare daylight raid from Norway against northern England, expecting minimal resistance. Hurricanes from No. 13 Group meet them. Luftflotte 5 suffers roughly 15 to 20 aircraft lost, and does not attempt another large daylight assault from Norway thereafter. German pilots trained to exploit the Hurricane's lower top speed, compared with the Bf 129 encounter, coordinated interceptions, driven by radar cueing and inland observers. Pilot fatigue becomes the critical constraint, with crews flying up to 4 sorties in a day at the height of the fighting. Ground crews turn aircraft around, rapidly imposing heavy wear that demands frequent maintenance and overhauls. The Luftwaffe's numerical weight across its 3 Luftflotten cannot overwhelm this integrated defence. On 16 August 1940, near Southampton, Flight Lieutenant James Brindley Nicolson of No. 249 Squadron presses his attack in a burning Hurricane long enough to destroy a Bf 110 before bailing out wounded, an action that earns Fighter Command's only Victoria Cross of the battle. Claims mount rapidly through late August. By 31 October, RAF Fighter Command claims 2,739 German aircraft destroyed with Hurricanes, credited for about 55%, over half of those victories. By late August 1940, the Luftwaffe recalibrates its strategy over southern England. Albert Kesselring, commanding Luftflotte, 2 redirects raids from scattered targets to RAF airfields aiming to shatter Fighter Command's operational backbone. Luftflotte 3 under Hugo Sperrle joins the effort pounding bases in the west, while Luftflotte 5, led by Hans-Jürgen Stumpff, remains a lesser threat after heavy losses in the north. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, steering Fighter Command, faces mounting pressure particularly on No. 11 Group under Air Vice Marshal Keith Park in the southeast. The Hurricane, comprising over 60% of Fighter Command's single-seat fighters, remains the linchpin of Britain's defence. Its 8 303-inch Browning machine guns deliver concentrated fire at ranges under 300 yards, ideal for disrupting bomber formations. The Luftwaffe's new focus targets sector stations, the nerve centres of Britain's air defence network. Radar stations detecting raids at long-range feed data to these stations, which vector hurricanes to intercept within minutes. On 30 August 1940, Biggin Hill, a key No. 11 Group airfield, endures heavy bombing that damages runways and control rooms. Hurricanes scramble under fire, climbing to interception height to engage Heinkel 111 and Dornier 17 bombers. The aircraft's Merlin engine, producing about 1,030 horsepower around mid-altitudes, provides reliable performance despite battle damage. Ground crews work under blackout conditions to turn aircraft around rapidly, imposing wear that demands frequent maintenance and overhauls to sustain sortie rates. German pilots, briefed to exploit the Hurricane's lower top speed compared with the Spitfire, often find its forgiving handling and tight low speed turn deceptive in close combat, especially against bomber formations. On 31 August 1940, Fighter Command flies hundreds of sorties with Hurricanes involved in the majority of engagements. Luftwaffe losses mount, and RAF claims rise sharply by month's end, many credited to Hurricanes. These tallies, compiled from combat reports, reflect the overclaiming common to all sides, but underscore the type's relentless presence. Pilots often flying 3 to 4 sorties daily at the height of the battle face, mounting exhaustion as squadrons rotate crews to maintain effectiveness. The human toll sharpens the stakes. On 18 August 1940, later known as the Hardest Day, Luftwaffe raids strike multiple airfields simultaneously. Hurricanes from No. 56 Squadron at North Weald are among the units intercepting Juncker's 88 bombers, scoring successes but taking losses. The integrated defence radar, the observer corps and sector control proves resilient, guiding interceptions even as infrastructure absorbs damage. German commanders, expecting Fighter Command to collapse under sustained airfield attacks, misjudge the depth and flexibility of Britain's system. The turning point emerges in early September. Convinced Fighter Command is near, breaking the Luftwaffe intensifies airfield raids, but Hurricanes continue to meet them. On 7 September 1940, Kesselring shifts to bombing London, seeking to draw out and exhaust the RAF. The change stretches Luftwaffe resources and flight times, while Hurricanes paired with Spitfires exploit the longer routes required for urban raids. Fighter Command's claims continue to climb. By 31 October, the tally reaches 2,700. 39 German aircraft claimed destroyed with Hurricanes, credited for about 55%, over half of those victories. The Luftwaffe, attrited by sustained operations and worsening weather, begins to falter. Dowding's force, though strained, holds firm, anchored by the Hurricane's workhorse role in Britain's defence. In early September 1940, the Luftwaffe pivots to a bold new strategy. Albert Kesselring, commanding Luftflotte, 2 shifts, raids from RAF airfields to London, aiming to draw Fighter Command into decisive battles and break civilian morale. Luftflotte 3 under Hugo Sperrle supports with attacks in the west, while Luftflotte 5, led by Hans-Jürgen Stumpff, fades from the daylight campaign after earlier defeats. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, guiding RAF Fighter Command, adapts to this escalation with No. 11 Group under Air Vice Marshal Keith Park, bearing the brunt over the southeast. The Hurricane, forming over 60% of Fighter Command's single-seat fighters, remains central. Its 8 303-inch Browning machine guns, delivering lethal bursts at close range. On 7 September 1940, the Luftwaffe launches its first massed daylight raid on London. Hundreds of bombers escorted by Bf 109 fighters stream across the Channel, striking docks and industrial districts. Chain-home radar detects the formations at long-range and sector stations, Vector Hurricanes and Spitfires to intercept. The Hurricane's Merlin III, producing about 1,030 horsepower around mid-altitudes, powers swift climbs to engagement height. In coordinated tactics, Spitfires work to tie down the escorts while Hurricanes break up the bomber streams. Fighter Command flies several hundred sorties that day, with Hurricanes engaged in the majority of interceptions. Claims mount rapidly as the Blitz begins in earnest. The shift to London stretches Luftwaffe operations. Bf 109 escorts have limited endurance over the target, reducing loiter time and leaving bombers more exposed once fighters turn back. Hurricanes exploit these windows, attacking formations as escorts disengage. Rather than a precise turning radius figure, it is the Hurricane's forgiving handling and strong low-speed turn that give pilots confidence against bomber types like the Heinkel 111 and Dornier 17. German aircrews, expecting a depleted RAF instead, face radar-directed interceptions that repeatedly break cohesion before bomb runs. Pilot and aircraft strain define the battle's rhythm. At the height of the fighting, many Hurricane pilots fly up to 4 sorties in a day, while ground crews turn aircraft around at speed, driving heavy wear that demands frequent maintenance and overhauls. On 15 September 1940, a pivotal day of the battle, Fighter Command claims 185 German aircraft destroyed, with Hurricanes credited for a large share, though post-war analysis confirms lower actual losses. The human element sharpens the stakes. Pilots, often in their early 20s, confront sustained combat and mounting fatigue. Civilians suffer heavily under the new strategy, with thousands killed in September alone, yet morale holds as RAF resistance remains visible and persistent. Through late September, claims continue to rise. By the end of October, Fighter Command claims 2,739 German aircraft, destroyed, with Hurricanes credited for about 55%, over half of those victories. The Luftwaffe's expectation of a swift knockout fades as daylight raid effectiveness declines and autumn weather compounds operational strain. With Hurricanes as the workhorse of the defense, Fighter Command remains intact and the campaign shifts toward night bombing. By late September 1940, the Luftwaffe's daylight campaign over Britain falters. Albert Kesselring, commanding Luftflotte 2, persists with raids on London and southern airfields, but momentum slips. Luftflotte 3, under Hugo Sperrle, scales back daylight operations in the west, while Luftflotte 5, led by Hans-Jürgen Stumpff, remains a marginal threat after earlier defeats. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, leading RAF Fighter Command, maintains a disciplined defence with No. 11 Group under Air Vice Marshal Keith Park, enduring the heaviest pressure in the southeast. The Hurricane, comprising over 60% of Fighter Command's single-seat fighters, anchors the resistance. Its 8 303-inch Browning machine guns deliver precise fire at close-range, shredding bomber formations. The Luftwaffe's raids, now smaller and less coordinated, face a relentless RAF response. Chain-home radar detects inbound formations at long range and feeds plots to group and sector operations rooms, which vector Hurricanes to intercept within minutes. On late September, raids against key airfields and the approaches to London Hurricane squadrons scramble under pressure, climbing to engagement height to break up Heinkel 111 and Dornier 17 formations. The Hurricane's Merlin III, producing about 1,030 horsepower around mid-altitudes, sustains repeated climbs and combat power settings. Ground crews working under blackout and repair constraints turn aircraft around quickly and carry out frequent maintenance and overhauls to keep sortie rates high. German pilots, worn by weeks of operations, report mounting frustration. The Luftwaffe had expected Fighter Command to collapse under sustained airfield attacks, but Britain's integrated system radar, the Observer Corps, and the sector control network continues to cue timely interceptions that force bombers to scatter or jettison. On 15 September 1940, a pivotal day, Fighter Command claims 185 German aircraft destroyed with Hurricanes credited for a large share, though later analysis places actual losses lower. Through September and into October, claims continue to mount. By the end of October, Fighter Command claims 2,739 German aircraft destroyed with Hurricanes, credited for about 55%, over half of those victories. The human cost grinds both sides. Many Hurricane pilots fly up to 4 sorties in a day at the height of the battle, and fatigue becomes a constant adversary. Individual acts of endurance, pilots nursing damaged aircraft back to base, ground crews restoring battered machines to service sustain Fighter Command's edge. Civilians suffer heavily under the daylight and early night raids, yet morale holds as RAF fighters remain visibly active over the southeast. The Luftwaffe, facing similar strain, loses cohesion. Bf 109 escorts, limited in endurance over the target, struggle to protect bomber streams for long. The Luftwaffe's strategic miscalculation deepens. Shifting the main effort to London was intended to exhaust Fighter Command, but instead stretches German resources and increases exposure time. Autumn weather, fog, rain, and low cloud complicates navigation and reduces bombing accuracy. Fighter Command, though battered, sustains tempo. On clear days, Hurricanes still fly multiple missions and sector stations, even when hit transfer work to backups and maintain control. The integrated defense ensures Hurricanes meet raids head-on, disrupting plans and eroding confidence across Luftwaffe formations. By mid-October 1940, large daylight operations dwindle, and night bombing becomes the primary German tactic. Fighter Command's resilience, anchored by the Hurricane's rugged structure, stable gun platform and numbers, proves decisive in denying the Luftwaffe daylight air superiority. While wartime claims were inflated by all sides, the record of Fighter Command's claimed totals and the Hurricane's more than half share capture the pressure the type exerted throughout the campaign. As October closes, the daylight battle fades. The Hurricane's workhorse role has held the line, while the fight shifts into the night. By October 1940, the Luftwaffe's daylight campaign over Britain crumbles under mounting losses and autumn's relentless weather. Albert Kesselring, commanding Luftflotte, 2 shifts to night bombing, targeting cities to break civilian resolve. Luftflotte 3 under Hugo Sperrle follows suit in the west, while Luftflotte 5 led by Hans-Jürgen Stumpff remains sidelined after earlier failures. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, steering RAF Fighter Command, maintains a battered but operational force with No. 11 Group under Air Vice Marshal Keith Park holding firm in the southeast. The Hurricane, forming over 60% of Fighter Command's single-seat fighters, remains the cornerstone of the defense. Its 8 303-inch Browning machine guns deliver devastating fire at close range, anchoring Britain's resistance. As daylight raids dwindle, the Luftwaffe's night bombing escalates, exploiting the RAF's limited night fighting capability. Hurricanes designed for day combat are ill-suited for nocturnal interceptions, lacking onboard radar and specialized instruments. Yet their daytime role remains critical through October's final weeks. Chain-home radar detects inbound formations at long-range and sector stations. Vector Hurricanes to the last daylight raids, often high-altitude bomber groups with fighter cover. The Hurricane's Merlin III, producing about 1,030 horsepower around mid-altitudes, sustains repeated climbs to engagement height. The aircraft's rugged design proves vital. By this stage of the battle, most frontline Hurricanes are fitted with metal-skinned wings and a sturdy structure that absorbs damage and returns pilots to base where ground crews working through alerts and blackouts turn. Aircraft around quickly with frequent maintenance and repairs to keep sortie rates high. In daylight, fights the type's forgiving handling and strong low-speed turn remain potent against bomber formations such as Heinkel 111 and Dornier 17. German pilots, exhausted by months of attrition, encounter radar-directed interceptions that break cohesion before bomb runs. By 31 October 1940, Fighter Command claims 2,739 German aircraft destroyed, with Hurricanes credited for about 55%, over half of those victories though. Post-war research confirms lower actual losses. The human toll defines the battle's closing days. Hurricane pilots, who at the height of the fighting in September could fly up to 4 sorties in a day, continue to face fatigue, even as daylight pressure eases. Civilians suffer grievously under night bombing, yet public morale holds alongside the visible persistence of RAF fighters. Ground crews keep the squadrons effective by repairing battle damage in hours and sustaining operations whenever weather permits. The Luftwaffe's shift to night bombing marks a strategic retreat. Daylight air superiority over Britain remains unachieved. Autumn fog, rain and low cloud further hamper German operations and reduce bombing accuracy. Fighter command, though strained, adapts sector stations can transfer control to backups when damaged, preserving the integrity of the system. As October closes the acknowledged end of the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe's daylight effort has faded. The campaign moves into the night. The narrative of German invincibility lies in tatters. Luftwaffe planners misjudged Britain's integrated defence and its resilience under pressure. Less celebrated than the Spitfire but indispensable, the Hurricane stable gun platform, rugged and present in numbers, accounts for over half of Fighter Command's claimed victories in the campaign's core period. That record, even allowing for wartime overclaiming, captures the relentless role the type played in holding the line. As November 1940 dawns, the Battle of Britain fades into history, leaving Britain unbowed. The Luftwaffe, under Albert Kesselring's Luftflotte II and Hugo Sperrle's Luftflotte III, shifts fully to night bombing, abandoning large daylight raids. Luftflotte V, led by Hans-Jürgen Stumpff, plays no significant role after its northern defeats. Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding, guiding RAF Fighter Command, secures a defensive victory with No. 11 Group under Air Vice Marshal Keith Park pivotal in the southeast. The Hurricane, making up around 60% of Fighter Command's single-seat fighters, stands as the battle's unsung hero. Its 8 303-inch Browning machine guns, most effective at close range, delivered relentless punishment to German bombers. The battle's end reveals the Hurricane's critical role. By 31 October 1940, Fighter Command claims 2,739 German aircraft destroyed, with Hurricanes credited for about 55%, over half of those victories. These tallies, drawn from wartime reports, reflect overclaiming but underscore the type's dominance in bomber interceptions. Chain-home radar detected raids at long range and enabled precise vectoring, guiding Hurricanes onto bomber streams before they reach targets. The Merlin III engine, delivering about 1,030 horsepower around mid-altitudes, powered repeated climbs to engagement height through the final weeks of daylight fighting. The Hurricane's rugged design proved its worth. By this stage of the battle, most frontline Hurricanes carried metal-skinned wings and a sturdy structure that absorbed damage, allowing many pilots to bring machines home for rapid repair. Ground crews, working through alerts and blackouts, turned aircraft around quickly with frequent maintenance and battle damage repairs, sustaining sortie rates whenever weather allowed. In daylight combat, the type's forgiving handling and strong low-speed turn remained potent against bomber formations such as Heinkel 111 and Dornier 17. German crews, increasingly worn by attrition, faced radar-directed interceptions that eroded cohesion and confidence. The human story lingers beyond the battle. Pilots, often in their early 20s, endured sustained combat and heavy fatigue at the peak, sometimes flying up to 4 sorties in a day. Civilians suffered grievously under the widening night bombing campaign, yet public morale held as RAF fighters remained visibly active over the southeast. The Hurricane, less celebrated than the Spitfire, became a symbol of quiet reliability, its pilots and ground crews carrying much of the operational burden. The Luftwaffe's failure reshapes the war. Daylight air superiority over Britain remains unachieved. Losses well over 1,000 aircraft across the campaign mount, while autumn weather further hampers operations. Fighter Command, though battered, maintains operational strength with Hurricanes central to its resilience. Sector stations, even when damaged, transfer control to backup sites, preserving the integrity of the system. Radar, the observer corps, and sector control together prove as vital as the aircraft themselves. The Hurricane's legacy endures beyond raw numbers. Its role, over half of Fighter Command's claimed victories in the core period, highlights its workhorse status. Post-war analysis, correcting inflated claims, confirms lower German losses overall, but the hurricane's impact in denying daylight air superiority remains clear. Dowding's strategy, emphasizing endurance over showy pursuit, leveraged the hurricane's reliability and numbers. As 1940 closes, the Luftwaffe's night bombing, though devastating, cannot force Britain's surrender or clear the way for invasion. Fighter Command's victory, anchored by the hurricane's relentless daylight defense, secures the skies enough for Britain to fight on.